Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Larry's Trackside Teaser. Whether you are listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, I would appreciate a like, comment, subscribe, follow, share, do whatever you got to do. But this week it is Bristol Motor Speedway. So we're going to preview the Bristol Motor Speedway weekend ahead of us. But before we do that, we will have to, of course, go through our weekly power rankings post Rockingham. And of course, we'll also go through the weekend schedule, some Bristol facts like the entry list, the truck series field is stacked. That's all I got to say. And of course, we'll go through what we really expect in this race, and then I will preview my picks for the weekend. But let's get started with the power rankings. So with my weekly power rankings, no changes with the Cup Series. We didn't have a Cup race this past weekend, it being Easter weekend. Hopefully everybody had a great Easter weekend, but we do have an update to the Truck Series and the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series power rankings. First, we'll take a look over at the Truck Series power rankings, as we have definitely had some pretty big overturn. You have to keep in mind, we're still very early on into the Truck Series season. Caden Honeycutt, over the last three races, is currently first in your power rankings for myself at a 3.66 average finish over the last three races. Came very close to getting that first career win over the last couple of weeks. Lane Riggs, in my opinion, has just been doing a good job over the last couple of weeks with not necessarily the fastest speed or the best car, but just really maximizing his finishing position. 5.33 average finish and one win over the last three races. And then honestly, the rest of this top five, it's been kind of hard to really put together a top five in power rankings because only really two drivers, at least out of full-time Truck Series drivers competing for points. I'm not including Corey Heim in this, and we'll talk more about Corey Heim actually a little bit later. But these two drivers of Caden Honeycutt and Lane Riggs have been the class of the field all year. I think Chandler Smith has definitely had some good races as well, but the last couple of races for Chandler haven't looked as good as the first couple of races of the season. So the rest of this top five was kind of hard to put together. Christian Eckes I have in third at a little bit over a 10th place average finish over the last three races. Grant Enfinger has began to turn it around after a horrible start to the year. He's began to turn it around over the last couple of races. A little over 11th place average finish with 11.33. And then Chandler Smith, it says his average finish is 19th place over the last three races, but that's mainly because this past weekend in Rockingham, Chandler Smith did technically come across the line in a top five finish, but he got disqualified after the race, ended up getting last place and last place points, which also dropped him from the points lead down to fourth in points for Chandler Smith, or third in points, depending on how you look at it, with Corey Heim technically being the points leader. And now we'll look over at the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Not really any changes from last week in the power rankings, except for fifth place in the power rankings. There has been a change. Of course, Justin Allgaier is still at the top of the list. A 1.6 average finish over the last three races. That is insane. He's averaging below a second place finish over the last three races. Two out of those three races he won. Sheldon Creed has been Mr. Consistent all year. He's running anywhere between like 3rd and 10th every single week. He's been doing really well at that. 5.66 average finish. And then averaging a 6th place finish over the last three races is Corey Day, who started on the pole at the Rock and led a bunch of laps, but ended up getting a 10th place finish. Still a really good run for him. And then Sammy Smith continues to do pretty well, an average finish of 8th place over the last three races. And then Brandon Jones would be the 5th driver in the O'Reilly Series power rankings at the moment with a 7.33 average finish over the last three races. But two out of the last three races, he's finished 2nd place. So he's came just short of getting that win. So Brandon Jones moves into the top five in my O'Reilly Auto Parts Series power rankings for this week. And like I said before, no changes to the Cup Series power rankings because there was no race this past weekend. All right, now that we have gone through the power rankings, let's go through the weekend schedule, some Bristol facts for the weekend, then, of course, give our weather analysis for the weekend. Starting with the weekend schedule for Bristol Motor Speedway. On Friday, April 10th at 3:30 p.m., we have Craftsman Truck Series practice on Fox Sports 2, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 7:30 p.m. on Friday, we have the Tennessee Army National Guard 250 on Fox Sports 1, the Craftsman Truck Series race. So it's an all Craftsman Trucks Friday. And then on Saturday at 2 p.m., we have O'Reilly Series practice on the CW app, immediately followed by qualifying also on the CW app. And then at 4:30 p.m., we have Cup Series practice on Prime Video, immediately followed by Cup Series qualifying. And then at 7:30 p.m., we have the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, the Suburban Propane 300 on the CW. And that once again, that's at 7:30 p.m. And then at 9 p.m., we actually have the Arca Menards West Series racing out here in Arizona at Tucson Speedway for 150 laps. And that will be on Flow Racing. And then on Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m., we have the Food City 500 on Fox Sports 1, the NASCAR Cup Series race at Bristol. Now let's take a look at some Bristol facts, some weekend facts in general, the entry list, and some weather. This weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, it is the Food City 500. Food City have been sponsoring this race ever since I was a kid. They've been sponsoring this race for a very long time. So good on Food City. The stages end for the Cup Series race. Stage 1, 125. Stage 2, 250. And then it's a 500 lap event. Of course, Bristol Motor Speedway located in Bristol, Tennessee. It's a little bit over a half-mile short track, a concrete short track, if you will. It opened up in 1961. The first race was also in 1961 on July 30th, won by Jack Smith, but his buddy Johnny Allen actually had to drive part of this race, so I kind of credit them both with the victory. And then the active win leader is Rowdy Busch, Kyle Busch, 8-time winner at Bristol Motor Speedway in the Cup Series. And then last year's winners, in the spring race, we had Kyle Larson, and then in the fall race, the night race, we had Christopher Bell. Now let's look at the notable entries that we have for the weekend. As I said a little bit earlier, the Truck Series field is completely stacked. We have Heim Time, Corey Heim, going for the Triple Truck Championship, I guess you would call it at this point. I don't think a single driver has ever won all 3 races in the Triple Truck Challenge, so he's trying to pull that off. Driving the number 1, and is technically the points leader, even though he's raced 3 out of the 5 races in the Truck Series. We have Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who has never raced in the Truck Series before this year, and he's all of a sudden getting a bunch of starts, driving the number 4 truck for Nice. You have Kyle Busch making another start for Spire in the number 7, and then you have the Ram Race for the Seat runner-up, making his first career start a little bit early. His first career start was supposed to be later on in the year at Martinsville, but they have decided to actually give him a go at Bristol. In the number 25 is Carson Ferguson, a driver to watch out for. And then in the number 45, we have Ross the Boss Chastain. In the number 62, we have Christopher Bell, once again racing for Stuart Friesen. And then in a third Spire Motorsports truck, we have Daniel Suarez in the number 71. And then in the number 77, we have Carson Hocevar. So we have 3 Cup Series drivers racing for Spire in the Truck Series this weekend. That is very interesting. In the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, we have Connor Zilich driving the number 1. And then in the number 88, we have Kyle Larson. And then the Cup Series, we once again have Justin Allgaier replacing Alex Bowman. Hopefully Bowman can return the next week in Kansas. And then the way the weekend weather report is looking at the moment, on Friday night, on Friday, it's 75 is the high and 48 is the low. It doesn't look like we're going to get any rain throughout the weekend, but I'm also recording this on Monday night or really early Tuesday, depending on where you're at in the country. So the weather obviously can change between now and then, but it looks like we're probably not going to get any rain. I would guess on Friday around race time for the Truck Series, it'll probably be a little bit below 60 degrees, probably mid 50s around race time for the Truck Series. For the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, I'd expect it to be roughly around the same because a similar temperature is at 78 the high and 50 the low on Saturday. And then Sunday, it's supposed to be a little bit warmer with the high being 83 degrees and the low being 55 degrees. But with it being an afternoon race for the Cup Series, I would expect the temperature around race time to be in the upper 70s, maybe even in the 80s or maybe mid 70s at that point. Well, now that we've gone through the facts, we've gone through the schedule, we've gone through some weather, my power rankings, all of that, what do we really expect from this weekend in Bristol? I think I'm looking into this weekend very similar to the way I was looking into the Martinsville weekend, because there was different factors that we knew were coming into play, but we didn't know how it was going to affect the racing. Obviously, I think it was 2 years ago now for this spring race, we had the tires get shredded up like cheese. It was crazy. There was rubber all over the racetrack, like strings of rubber up against the wall. Pretty much almost created a cushion up there. If some of you are familiar with dirt racing, it kind of created like a little cushion up at the top of the racetrack. It was very interesting what we had, and one of the reasons why we had that is because none of the teams knew that was going to happen. None of the teams saw it coming. When it came to Martinsville, and I think Darlington as well, some teams were expecting to potentially get a bunch of tire fall off, and they really prepared themselves for what tire fall off we may see. They weren't expecting that at Bristol. And I think we could honestly be getting something similar this weekend, potentially at Bristol. I'm not saying we're going to get that, but we could get that. We could also get a snooze fest. I'm not sure what we're going to get, because now we have the higher horsepower package for the short tracks and certain tracks on the schedule. And we saw what that did for Martinsville. I think it slightly helped the racing in Martinsville. It still wasn't a good race. Let me say that straight up. I still didn't enjoy the race. I know some Chase Elliott fans are probably going to tell you the race was great because Chase Elliott won. It wasn't a great race. It's better than what we've had in the next gen era at Martinsville. I'll agree with that. I'll agree to that. But it doesn't even compare to the racing at Martinsville we used to get before the next gen era. So Bristol, we could potentially have something like that. I don't know what we're going to have because, like I said, we have the higher horsepower, but we also have new tires because we've enjoyed the tires that we've had at Bristol. But now with the new package, you kind of need to have new tires that kind of go along with that new package. So we even have new unused tires for this event as well. So we don't know exactly what we're going to get. I'm expecting decent tire fall off because I think Goodyear has been really good about that, and they've been listening and they've been doing what they need to do to really help the racing. Goodyear have really been, in my opinion at least, the big carrier on why we've had slightly better racing in the next gen car. I don't think it's anything necessarily that NASCAR has really done. I think the horsepower being upped this year has helped a little bit here and there. I still think in some places it needs to go even higher. Like at a short track, I think it should maybe go even higher. I don't know about other tracks. There's arguments to be made for like a super speedway or something that maybe it should even go lower. I think it's something that NASCAR should definitely play with. But when it comes to just the racing overall becoming a little bit better over the last, I'd say 2 years at the short tracks for the next gen car, like last 2 years, a year and a half, whatever the case may be, it's been because of Goodyear. And Goodyear have also done this thing where they would run 2 different tire compounds. I mean, NASCAR overall made it happen, but who are the ones making the tires and making them actually fall off, making them soft enough? Goodyear. And then some people would even argue they're still not making it soft enough. So there's even further that they could potentially go. So Goodyear deserves all the praise. I know they're doing a lot of hard work over there at Goodyear when it comes to creating better racing and softer tires. So that's what I would I believe in Goodyear. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, that we're going to get some good tire fall off. It's going to be a little bit warmer this year for the spring race from what it looks like in the weather report than what it usually is, because I would usually say it's like mid 60s or something like that for this race. That one year when Kurt Busch won, there was snow. It snowed that year. We had the race delayed, I think, because of snow, something like that, if I remember correctly. And Kurt Busch did the Snow Angels when he was racing for Penske on the front straightaway. So it's usually a lot colder for this race, and we're going to potentially have this race similar temperatures, not quite as humid, not quite as hot as we would have for the night race in August, or it's been ran a couple of different times. I think it's ran in September now, but I usually know it for getting run in August, because that's when it used to be run, when it was the Sharpie 500 to get run in August. But even it being in September or October or whenever it is now, I think it's in September now, it's similar to that temperature. We're going to potentially be getting around race time, as I said earlier when I was going through the weather. Like I said, I'm recording this on a late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, depending on where you're at in the country. It looks like on Sunday that around race time, temperature is probably going to be 75 degrees plus, which is a lot warmer than what we usually get at Bristol. And I guarantee that's warmer than what we had a couple of years ago when we had those tires shred up all over the racetrack. So I don't know. Like I said, a lot of unknowns going into this event. I'm just hoping we have a good race, and we do have some tire fall off. We have some strategy thrown in there as well. So with all that being said, let me go through some favorites, some potential underdogs, and then of course I'll give my weekend picks, some Cup Series favorites and some Cup Series underdogs I got to go through to kind of start this off. I think a couple favorites immediately come to mind. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. Those two drivers are so fantastic at Bristol, especially the last couple of years since we've gotten into the next-gen era. And they're pretty much good anywhere we go, especially Denny right now. Denny's probably the hottest driver right now. I think there's obviously an argument to be made with Reddick, but Reddick hasn't looked as great the last couple of weeks. But to be fair, it's been short tracks. He's not really a short track racer. It's not really been, not the last couple of races, but Martinsville, I should say. Not last couple, because he won one of those too. But last race in Martinsville, he's not really a short track racer, Tyler Reddick. And also, so I won't really expect him to be competing for the win at Bristol, but he might. He might. Tyler Reddick's a great driver, so he might. But his weak point is definitely the short tracks. So Hamlin, Larson for sure. Christopher Bell won the race, the night race here last year, so I think he has a good opportunity. If we have all the tire fall off that I'm kind of thinking we could get, Brad Keselowski is a driver that comes to mind for sure. He's really good at saving tires, along with Denny Hamlin, another driver obviously good at saving tires. I would love to sit here and say Kyle Busch, because Kyle Busch is my favorite driver. I would love to sit here and say Kyle Busch could get his 9th win at Bristol in the Cup Series this weekend, but with the way Richard Childress Racing is right now, and the way his attitude is with RCR, Kyle Busch doesn't seem very happy at all right now. I don't think he's coming back to RCR next season. I don't see him competing for the win or even competing for a top 10 this weekend, which is very unfortunate. Let's see, who else? A couple more favorites, actually. A couple more favorites. Look at Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's looking real good right now. Hendrick looks like they're finally figuring out this body of cars. So that would probably lump William Byron in there, which kind of sets us up perfectly now for the underdogs. And I got to name that 4th Hendrick driver, Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier is really good at Bristol. I would say it's one of his best racetracks. Bristol, Darlington, Phoenix are probably some of his best racetracks. So, and he's getting more used to racing that car at this point. And then the team is getting more used to the body style now, and maybe getting more used to the way Justin races compared to Bowman. So I'm looking forward to, I don't think Allgaier is going to win, but I can definitely see him getting a top 10. A couple other drivers as underdogs. I would have to look at Suarez. I'm wearing a shirt right now. Suarez has had a really good start to the year. He's also going to race in the Truck Series race, so that could potentially provide him momentum or getting more used to the track. I think that's one of the reasons we see these Truck Series entry lists are been so stacked this year, is because the truck is more similar to the Cup car than the O'Reilly car, which is crazy to say, but that's what I've heard. So maybe Daniel Suarez, Carson Hocevar. I don't know if you can really consider Carson Hocevar an underdog at this point, because I think we all know he's getting that first win very, very soon. Same thing with Ty Gibbs. I think we all assume that he's going to get that first win very, very soon. And then another driver that I think I've named in underdogs every single week, and that is Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG. He's really good at saving. He's really good at saving tires. He's really good at driving as hard as he can without using his tires. And we've seen in the past some of these road course drivers have success. And I said this last week about Martinsville, and he had a good day at Martinsville, great day. He ran top 5, top 10 all race long and finished 11th at Martinsville. And I said that he could do that. I wouldn't be surprised. And I can see him doing the same thing at Bristol, because we've seen the same thing out of some of these road course guys. They have success at Bristol, like Juan Pablo Montoya, Marcus Ambrose. Those two drivers were great at Bristol. I'd probably say that Bristol was probably their best racetrack when they were racing in the Cup Series, other than obviously Watkins Glen and Sonoma. So I would have to look at SVG as well as a really good underdog for this weekend, which leads me right into my weekly picks for the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series. We have all three series at Bristol this weekend, and I'm going to be honest, my picks are extremely boring. They're extremely boring and very predictable for this week with the way this season has been playing out so far, and coming into a track where we usually see one of those favorites win unless we get a bunch of chaos at the end, which sometimes does happen at Bristol. But I'm ignoring the potential chaos that we could have. And in the Truck Series, I think I said this last week, if he's in the race, I'm probably going to be picking him. And it is always Heim time in the Craftsman Truck Series, as I'm going to pick Corey Heim to win 3 straight races. I picked him last week. He got the win, and honestly, probably shouldn't have with the way the end of that race panned out. If you watched my Car in the Hauler, I kind of listed out my opinions on that with Tanner Gray and everything like that. So probably take a listen back to that if you want to get my thoughts on how that ended. But I got to take Heim time. Driver of the number 11 for Tricon Garage to win the Craftsman Truck Series race, which leads me to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. And last week I picked Corey Day. He started on the pole, led a bunch of laps, ended up getting 10th, but overall a really good day for him. And this week I'm not going to be picking Corey Day. I'm going to pick Justin Allgaier. Like I said, these picks are going to be very boring. They're going to be very boring and very predictable. I'm going to pick Justin Allgaier to win. Yeah, that's where I'm pretty sure that was his first O'Reilly Series win was over there. And when it was called the Nationwide Series, he drove the number 12 for Penske back then. So I'm going to have to take Allgaier, the alligator, little gator, to get another win on the year and extend his points lead by a crazy... He's already up by over 120 points. He might leave Bristol up 175 or more points. It's just he's having an insane start to the year. And then to continue my boring picks, my Cup Series pick has to be Denny Hamlin, Dennis the Menace. I picked Denny Hamlin to win the Cup Series race, the Food City 500 on Sunday. Shouldn't come as a big surprise. He's had a lot of success at Bristol Motor Speedway. That's where he unveiled his catchphrase, if you will. I beat your favorite driver, you know. So, and that guy threw the cucumber on the track. That's where that tradition was born too. So if we see Denny win, we'll see a cucumber on the front straightaway for sure. We'll see a cucumber on the front straightaway. An English cucumber too, not one of those an English cucumber wrapped in the saran wrap. You know what I'm talking about. That English cucumber. So, like I said, very boring, very predictable picks that I made. I got Heim, once again, I got Corey Heim, the driver of the number 1 for Tricon Garage in the Craftsman Truck Series to win on Friday night. Then on Saturday night for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, I got Justin Allgaier, the driver of the number 7 for Junior Motorsports. And then on Sunday afternoon, the Food City 500, the NASCAR Cup Series race, I'm picking Dennis the Menace, Denny Hamlin, the driver of the number 11 for Joe Gibbs Racing, to get another victory on the season. So everybody that I have winning this weekend, like I said, very predictable and looking to add to their win total that they already have on the season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about anything I talked about here today. Are you looking forward to Bristol Motor Speedway? Also, who are your picks? Who are your picks to win the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, NASCAR Cup Series races this week, and maybe even provide a couple of underdogs and some underdogs that you could see maybe doing really well this weekend? Let me know in the comments. But that'll do it for this week's edition of Larry's Trackside Teaser. And for now, I'm Trackside Larry saying peace.